In-person absentee voting will come to a close in some municipalities across the state, and voting numbers are already showing to be more than 4 years ago.
The Wisconsin Elections Commission is reporting voter turnout is up more than 40% from the 2020 presidential election. Samantha Cavalli has the latest numbers from the State Election Commission ahead of Election Day in Your Voice, Your Vote coverage.
With just 4 days until Election Day, the Wisconsin Elections Commission is reporting Wisconsin voters participated more than ever, either by mail or in-person absentee voting during this election.
I think clerks were, a little surprised by turnout.
As of last week, just over 1.3 million Wisconsinites cast their vote, up 40% from the 2020 presidential election. Megan Wolf, administrator with the Wisconsin Elections Commission, says based on the numbers from last election, the Friday before Election Day was the busiest for in-person absentee voting.
For our preparation and planning, a lot of times we have to look to history, right? What was the voting behavior like? Did people utilize by mail, in-person absentee? Did they vote at the polls on Election Day? And as we've seen over the last 5 years, that historical data has really not been useful to planning.
During a virtual news conference Friday, Wolf discussed the label printing delays from October 22nd that caused early voters to wait in line for nearly 2 hours. She says the Wisconsin Elections Commission made quick changes to the system and the slowness was limited to the printing of labels for ballot envelopes. When asked about possible long wait times this Tuesday, Wolf says label printing won't be an issue on Election Day.
It is only an optional function that's used during in-person absentee voting. Everything used to facilitate Election Day voting is localized to the polling place or on paper and does not rely on a statewide database.
Wolf reminds voters to bring an acceptable photo ID as well as pack your patience. Polls open Tuesday at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. Reporting in Grand Chute, Samantha Cavalli, Action 2 News.